A little bit of phone battery and a moment of time, so I want to do a little greenhouse update. We're going to come in here inside the greenhouse, turn around, close my makeshift door. Eventually I will put an actual door on this sucker, on this frame here, but for now it's just flaps. So, you know, is what it is. And Doug, Caleb, Lucas, if any of you guys are watching this down at Common Ground, this greenhouse is very inspired by Doug and all the low tunnels you guys have set up down there. Every time I go and open up or close the greenhouse, I think of you guys. And Doug has taught me a lot about managing these low tunnels, these unheated greenhouses. So a day like today, it's very cloudy and overcast. It's about 60 outside. Inside the greenhouse is about 70. So a day like today, we really cannot open this up. Or we could, the plants would be okay at 60 degrees, but we don't get any heat if we open it up. Whereas a day where it's 60 and sunny, it would be almost 100 degrees in here if we didn't open it up, maybe hotter. So there's a lot of nuances to opening and closing the greenhouse, you know, trying to talk about that as we encounter it. But I want to talk mostly today about the different seeds and seedlings and things that are growing in here, all the wonderful plant friends. It might be a good space to start. I'm doing a lot of stuff in trays where we're scatter sowing small seeds where I don't know exactly what the germination rate is going to be like. So this is butterfly milkweed and yarrow. And then once the seedlings get a little bit bigger than this, I probably could do it at this stage, but I typically let them get a little bit bigger. I'll come in with my finger and dig them out, and I'll individually pot them up in whatever pots I have available. So right now, these are all rhubarb in here, little rhubarb seedlings that I just potted up the other day. This is the size pot that we have a lot of used. You know, I typically try to repurpose and reuse as many pots as possible. You know, whenever I can avoid buying new plastic or fabric pots, that's a good thing. Sometimes you got to do it. Sometimes you can't always source what you need used, but we try to as much as we can with pots. And so we have a lot of these little pots. We're potting a lot of things up into them. Size of the root mass, you know, we had a bunch of these yarrows that we dug up from a field planting, and so they had bigger root masses, so they start off in bigger pots. Things that are smaller are starting off in smaller pots. Go through here and try to talk about most of these seedlings, but the basic gist is that we're going to try to get as many things as possible into pots this big or bigger to be distributing here at local farmers markets in the Roanoke area. We're based in Martinsville, Virginia, but most of the markets we go to are up in the Roanoke area. And so that's what a lot of these potted plants are for local sales throughout the spring and summer season. Probably heard me talk some about this before. We'll still definitely be doing bare root distribution during the dormant season, which is coming to a close. This is probably the last week that I'll be shipping bare root trees. So a lot of my focus and work is now shifting towards this sort of stuff in the greenhouse. We've got some elderberry cuttings rooting in these pots, some of these monkey puzzle trees that came out of air printing beds that I just potted up in here recently. There's all sorts of stuff going on. So we've got, here are some asters from last year. Our good friends Damien gave us these actually. And one of my, black-eyed peas seems to have fallen in here and germinated, which is hilarious. This is a really cool one. This is a variety of lamb's quarters that tends to have red leaves. You can see the stems are really red, and they'll make these, you can see on the underside of the leaf, they'll make these really purpley red leaves. So those are really cool. I actually forget what's in here, so we'll look at the label. This is a black nightshade that I collected locally at the farm down in Cedar Grove. What do we have here? Snow on the Mountain, another interesting shade-tolerant native species. I'm trying to germinate sourwood in here, which is, the seeds are so small. Get these leaves off of here. And I don't know that any of them are germinating yet, but you can see these little brown dots. Those are the seeds. So we're trying to germinate sourwood seeds here. And just continually potting more stuff up. We've got some annuals like calendula. There's some mountain mint or common mint. I actually need to check. I have a label on one of these somewhere. And then some poppies in here. Some trees being started. So we've got some cherry plums, which we're going to get into bigger pots. And I've got some serviceberry, June berries down here that we started. These seeds germinated too early in the fridge, so we had to start them out here in the greenhouse, but these are in these little pots right now. I like to mulch my trees when they're in pots, even if they're in small pots. It really helps a lot, I find. Down here, these are dogwood seedlings coming up, along with, we've got a whole bunch of marigolds that I need to get potted up. What do we have in here? These are celosias, Texas plume. This is a Korean mint. You can see how small. Let's see if we can zoom in right here. Korean mint, and I'm gonna put my finger right here for scale. Some of these seedlings are super duper small. I think I'll include it in this video, but I'm going to try to make a video where I talk about how we're actually starting these small seeded crops, sowing the seed and plucking them out and potting them up individually. It's pretty simple, but it took me a little while to get the hang of this. When I first got started, anything that had a small seed, I just really struggled. You have to keep the seeds consistently moist. You really have to have a weed-free medium, and you can't mulch them at all. I tend to mulch things really heavily, and for small seeded stuff, that just doesn't work. So we'll talk about that more in another video, but check this out. Black-eyed Susan. What do we have here? Spotted Joe pieweed. You can see how small. Look at this little seedling. I zoom out, and that compared to a label, little plant label. I mean, these things are small. They're very delicate at this stage. These are hardy plants, generally hardy native plants, but at this stage, they're just very delicate. They need to be treated with care. And again, there's so many plants going on in here. I don't think we're gonna have time to talk about every single one in this video. These are sage. And then down here we have some coriander. I'm really excited about these. Coriander is one of my favorite spices. So excited to have that going on from seed. We're trying to really have a lot of diversity of basil and mint. And so sweet, Genovese style basil and Tulsi basil, holy basil. Most people know those few types. But there's also lemon basil, chocolate basil. There's a ton of different varieties of basil. We've got some that are supposed to have kind of a fruity-like smell. There's really a lot of diversity in the basil family. Most of these I have not grown before. Holy basil I've grown a ton of, and regular sweet basil I've grown a ton of, but these other types I don't have as much experience with, and we're trying to really offer a diversity of basils, like I said, and mints and other herbs, all the different flavors of mints and herbs and flowers and things. One of my favorites, evening primrose. I'm gonna flip the camera around here. These are evening primrose germinating. So these are about ready for me to pluck them up and put them into individual pots. And we're just, again, fingers crossed here that we don't get a gnarly freeze. We're still well within our frost window. We could get a frost any day. The next 2 weeks look good, but we gotta get pretty much into the third week of April before we are feeling decent. Greenhouse without a heater can handle a very light frost, and these plants will be okay, but anything below that or beyond that, below that, we're going to be in trouble without a heater out here. Now, we could put a heater in, we could get more plastic and add layers of plastic, which would help insulate further, but I think if we really get a freeze, I'm going to have to err on the side of caution, just because we have so much work in here that we don't want to lose. We'll probably have to take everything into the shed with a heat lamp where it's a little bit more insulated, and again, we can provide a heat source safely. We have the heat lamp in the shed for the chicken brooder all the time, so we know that that's safe. And I think that's probably what we're gonna have to do. The sheds right there. It's a lot of trays to move, and again, we're hoping to avoid it, but we'll see how it goes. We've got our stacked worm composting bins in here. There's 2 there, 2 right here. They froze really hard over winter, so all the worms died. The adult worms died. Their cocoons or their eggs are in there, and they've all been hatching, and we've added some fresh worms in from a compost pile that didn't freeze. So the population of worms is building back up. We'll talk about that in another video. Is kind of the gist. I just wanted to show off some of the plants, some of what's going on in here. Marshmallow, bitter sneezeweed, some thyme in here, oxeye sunflower here. Some stuff going in these, I think these are called wind strips, this type of air pruning seed tray. These are really nice, but they're expensive, so I only have a few of them. But you can see, if I flip this over, that bottom of this tray is exposed to air, and so because we have it propped up in this sort of tray on a shelf, air can come in underneath, and it does air prunes these roots just like the air pruning beds. We've got Tulsi. This is a whole flat of Tulsi. You can see germination's been kind of spotty, and we've got catnip over here, another type of mint that most of us are familiar for our cats. It's a little wet in here today, watered, so it's a little bit wet. Also, it's, rainy and drippy outside, but generally I do like to let this stuff dry out pretty thoroughly before I water. Kind of a fine line between watering too much and not enough. Let me know if you have more questions on watering stuff inside here. I'll probably talk about that more in the seed starting video, because it really comes up when you're trying to start seeds and such. So I like these wind strips so much, and we only have a few of them. Some of them are actually going for personal stuff we're going to start in the garden, like this purple stemmed arugula we're going to plant out here. I'm very excited about that. Rat tail radish. We've got some different kinds of kale. We've got a ton of different types of cherry tomatoes up in here that I'm really excited about. Other than that, though, most of these plants, like I said, are for the markets. Example of extremely tiny plants. Cardinal flower. Extremely small. extremely small. They're amazing species to work with. That's what it takes to grow them from seed, to propagate them in that way. You have to do what the seed needs. We're thrilled about all these plants. Probably last one we'll talk about here, this sea kale. My phone is definitely about to die. I'm gonna gotta go put it on the charger and get back to work potting stuff up and get some lunch. But yeah, let me know what you all want to see more of. This is a super orange safflower. Yeah, so anyway, my phone's about to die, but I was just talking about all the plants. Do you have a favorite in here? It's kind of hard to pick favorites for me.
It's hard to pick favorites.
Sun's starting to come out.
Little.
I know.
I like how determined these ones are.
The sunflowers?
Yeah.
Yeah, the sunflowers are really determined. We got to get these out of these. They're like, the roots are totally down to the bottom. These need to get potted up today. I just got some more soil.
And I might be biased, but I like my weedling because it didn't die.
I must admit, I like coming in and smelling this guy. This will not be going to the market. We are not selling any of that.
That stays here.
Not allowed. Not allowed. Said when the sun comes out, it gets hotter. The sun's hardly started to come out. We've gone from 70 to 80 just in the span of time of me filming this video, like less than 20 minutes. So it changes a lot. You really got to be cognizant of what's going on with the weather when you're managing a greenhouse like this. So anyway, probably cut it off. And let us know, what questions you have, comments about this whole thing.